My mother was really busy between 1921 and 26 after having Daniel 8 years before in 1913. She had May in 1921 and me 13 months later, then Dor 13 months after that. Raymond came 17 months later, and Helen, the last, came 14 months later. 5 kids in 5 years. So we pretty much played together and went places together, especially the time when Mom, May, Ray, and Helen went to China. Dor and I were, well, she was 8 and I was 9, and that's the period when Dor and I really bonded. Afterwards, before that, Dor and May would always share the bedroom, and I shared mine with Helen. So it was quite a change for me to be with Dor, just Dor and me together. Dor was very active at the beginning. She's friendly and outgoing. She loved animals, but they also gave her allergies. There was a cat roaming around our backyard on 11th Avenue, and she picked it up and took care of it. I can still picture her sitting on the sofa petting this black cat, black and white cat. She just loved animals, and well, I couldn't even bother picking them up. I like dogs and not cats. Cats are too soft, and I prefer sturdy animals. We had a German Shepherd, police dogs we called them then. The older brother, Daniel, loved him and put him on a long clothesline so he would run back and forth. There was no fence. I can just picture him running back and forth so we would have to take him out to exercise. Dor and I wanted to go to a radio station, and Dor wanted to go down to the station to sing. And she also liked to act. I remember once we sang and tap danced to a song, Sidewalks in New York, after watching the musical. We also sang together on Girl Scout, reserves on the train, on the radio. I remember singing Chinese songs together. Once Dor and I put on a show, singing and dancing for our neighbors. I think there was an audience of 3 or 4. We walked to school together, to elementary school and on Beacon Hill. At Franklin High, Dor and I would take her streetcar. We loved to see the movie. We loved to would take the streetcar to school. Dor and I loved to see movies, and in those days there were no matinees. They opened at 4:30 or 5, so it would start when we got out of the theater. Dor and I would walk home together and always walk on the side of the street with a high cement wall. I was worried that somebody would jump out, but Dor was never scared or worried. Dor and I went to walk to Uncle Hung for dinner, just Dor and me. We would go to Kenny's place every night. That was when Ma took the rest of the children to China, and we were living with Pa. And I remember a big dog barking, and I wanted to walk fast, but Dor said, "Don't run." She was calm, but I was scared. And of course, if I ran, he would have chased me. I seemed to fret, but not Dor. She was always calm, confident, and assured at a very young age. Dor was, I think, was very gorgeous. She was one of those who attracted boys the most. I sensed that she was really well liked. Boys were not in our lives until after college or during college. But even at church, why do we put this in? I had to proofread. It didn't ever.
Gary made the whole thing up.
Dor had a very confident, outgoing personality. very friendly. Read this. Dora and her friends all seemed to major in sociology. Mamie was one of Dora's oldest and best friends. We all saw each other often over the years, going to the U of W. Dora was a good student, never any complaints. Sociology seems to be the major for Dora. She was always so sociable and interested in cultures and people. I was more interested in politics. May went to D.C. to work for the Chinese government when she was a junior in college. She was the first one to leave home, and she went off to work with her older brother Daniel. Dora went back east when May married Harry in D.C. 1 year after. I think it was 1944, 45. Okay. Well, Harry was 6 months old when Wayne and I came back from Taiwan in 1950, and Dora and Tom met us in San Francisco. That was the first time I met Tom. He was so nice to Barry, and he was so observant of Barry as he was soon to be a new father with Andrea on the way. It was very apparent that he would be a great father. I remember he was always very careful about how the house was run and how everything was organized and in a certain way. Back then, Tom and Dora had an apartment on Elm Street. Dora was pregnant with Andrea. Andrea was born later was born in March. Well, after having lived in Japan and Taiwan, I find that their apartments seem to be quite spacious. But we stayed only 2 or 3 days with them before we flew up to Seattle to settle there. Tom and Dora would come to visit every summer would come to visit every summer to see Ma and Pa in Seattle. So the Changs and the Chins.
What? Which one was that?
So the Changs and the Chins saw each other quite often. After Audrey was born, we were living in Palo Alto. We would see Dora and Tom quite often in Sausalito. They lived right near the train tracks, I remember, and we would watch when the train came by with the caboose. Uncle Tom was never concerned about living so close to the tracks. Nothing ever bothers him. In the late 1970s, Dora introduced me to Elder Hostel, and we went to Arizona, Sedona. She would always go into depth, wanting to know the culture and the people. For me, it was just like visiting beautiful places, all sights and sounds. But for Dora, she would go into more detail, observing culture, the people, and she took great pictures. At one time, Dora and I also flew back east with the girls to visit the Suhus, but with Mamie. I still remember the occasion and the wonderful lobster dinners that we had. Yeah. Lobster dinners. Dora was an adventurer, a traveler, a real historian. Soft-spoken Dora with an open mind and heart, and calm and confident. Most of all, to me, she was my beautiful little sister, full of life, curiosity. And she was such a wonderful mother, wife, mother, grandmother, auntie, and friend. Thank you, Dora, for your friendship, loyalty, and love.
Thank you, Auntie Jean. That was absolutely beautiful. And thank you for sharing your personal memories about my mom. We're so grateful.
Okay, actually first I'm going to do my own say a few words of my own before I read Auntie May's piece. So to quote Steve Jobs, connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. Like all of us, my dots had highs such as graduation, marriage, becoming a parent, and lows, teen angst, passing my first wife Janice. But through all those ups and downs, Mom and Dad were always there. With Mom as my role model, I was able to become a surrogate mom, as well as Dad to Colin, for about 6 years until I was rescued by my superhero, Kathy. Mom, as you told me more than a few times that I was the one who gave you all your gray hair. But I know you lingered longer than you wanted to, but I'm at peace knowing you lived a long, full, fulfilling life and that all your dots connected. So we're going to miss you, Mom. Okay. So Aunt May had a lot of the same memories as Auntie Jean. So Aunt May, my apologies, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to share a few words about your childhood, and then Andrew's going to pick it up from there. My earliest memory of Dorothy is her sucking her third and fourth fingers of her left hand and twirling her hair with her right hand. This habit of hers lasted many years when she was a young child. I don't remember when she grew out of it, but that image is still very vivid in my mind. When Dorothy was about 6 years old, she suffered an attack of asthma triggered by playing with a little puppy at a Japanese farm, where we often went to buy live squab or turtles for Mother to dress and cook. Dorothy had to be treated with an inhalant by boiling the medicine in a kettle to produce steam for her to breathe under a makeshift canopy over her bed. There were no nebulizers at that time. Ever since that first attack, Dorothy was sensitive to furry pets and other allergies. She was a sweet, carefree, and jolly child. She often went about with her knee-length stockings slipped down to her ankles. Whenever Mother told her to pull up her stockings, carefree Dora would just scamper off saying, "I don't care." Mother would shake her head sighing, "Ah, Hainela," meaning, "There you go again." And as Auntie Jean mentioned, Dorothy loved to sing and dance and act. She also liked to do somersaults and cartwheels. There was a high bar at the school playground near our house on 11th Ave. Dora and I always found it fun to climb up and spin ourselves over and over it. Once when she was 8 years old, she went to a local radio station and sang the Scottish song Loch Lomond on the amateur hour. It was a hit. We loved it when we heard it over the radio at home. When we were living on East Jefferson Street in 1934 to 37, our neighbor Bertha Chin and cousin Dick would come participate in skits and songs or poetry recitals that we performed in our house. Sometimes we had contests and award prizes. Dora always had a ball participating in them. Our parents, neighbors, and friends were our faithful and supportive audience. So thanks, Auntie May, who is 96 now and living in Louisville. She wasn't able to make it, but her daughter, Marcia, is here representing the family.